The nasty patty. What happens when SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs think they've accidentally committed murder? You get one of the most psychologically disturbing installments in the series, where our usually innocent protagonists spend 20 minutes acting like they're hiding a body from the mob. The health inspector collapses after eating their nasty patty, and instead of calling for help, they immediately assume he's dead and start planning a cover-up. This scenario transforms SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs into paranoid criminals, complete with shifty eyes, whispered conversations, and elaborate burial schemes. Watching SpongeBob, the guy who apologizes to jellyfish for catching them, casually discuss disposing of what he thinks is a corpse is genuinely unsettling. The fact that they never once consider calling an ambulance says something dark about how panic can corrupt even the purest characters. The episode's most chilling moments come when they're actually digging what they believe is a grave, with Mr. Krabs coldly calculating the best disposal method, while SpongeBob nervously agrees to become an accessory to murder. Their paranoid behavior escalates to the point where they're jumping at every shadow, convinced the police are onto them. The health inspector's unconscious groaning, which they interpret as ghostly moaning, sends them into full panic mode. One course meal. This 22-minute nightmare is essentially a masterclass in psychological torture disguised as a children's cartoon. Mr. Krabs discovers Plankton's fear of whales and exploits it with the systematic cruelty of someone who's read a psychology textbook and decided to use it for evil. He doesn't just scare Plankton once for laughs. He orchestrates an extended campaign of terror that pushes his business rival to the brink of mental collapse. The most disturbing part isn't the whale costume or the fake pearl encounters. It's watching Plankton's gradual breakdown as he realizes there's no escape from his torment. We witness a character developing what looks suspiciously like PTSD, complete with paranoia, sleeplessness, and eventually giving up entirely. When Plankton lies down in the road, ready to end it all, you're watching a suicide attempt in a kid's show. Mr. Krabs takes sadistic pleasure in Plankton's terror, even recruiting his own daughter Pearl to participate in the psychological torture without her knowledge. The whale sounds that send Plankton into panic attacks are played repeatedly, like a form of audio waterboarding. Plankton's attempts to seek refuge in his own restaurant become futile, as Mr. Krabs ensures the whale sounds follow him everywhere, creating a prison of fear from which there's no escape. Are you happy now? SpongeBob's attempt to help Squidward find happiness accidentally triggers what can only be described as a severe depressive breakdown, complete with all the clinical symptoms that would send most people straight to therapy. Squidward's descent into darkness is portrayed with an accuracy that's genuinely unsettling for a cartoon supposedly aimed at children. The narrative shows Squidward exhibiting classic signs of depression, loss of interest in activities, hopelessness, isolation, and an inability to experience joy. His house becomes a monument to misery, filled with sad paintings and depressing music, like a museum dedicated to human suffering. Seeing this played for laughs makes it even more disturbing. The episode's darkest turn comes when Squidward creates increasingly morbid memories to satisfy SpongeBob's demands, including scenes of rain, crying, and existential emptiness. His artwork becomes progressively more depressing, featuring imagery of death and despair that feels genuinely unsettling. By the way, I'm going to be posting a lot here, so subscribe and drop a like for the algorithm. SB129. The White Void sequence in SB129 is pure existential horror disguised as time travel comedy. Squidward finds himself trapped in an endless expanse of nothingness, where time has no meaning and reality itself seems to have taken a coffee break. It's the kind of scenario that keeps philosophy professors awake at night, presented as children's entertainment. The alone voice echoing through the void while Squidward slowly loses his mind is probably the most genuinely terrifying moment in SpongeBob history. It's cosmic horror on the level of Lovecraft, exploring themes of isolation, infinity, and the meaninglessness of existence in ways that would make adults uncomfortable, let alone kids. The void sequence becomes progressively more disturbing as Squidward's desperate attempts to escape or create something, anything, fail completely. His screams echo into nothingness, absorbed by an endless white expanse that offers no response, no hope, and no end. Have you seen this snail? Gary's disappearance explores themes of neglect, abandonment, and near death with the kind of emotional weight usually reserved for dramatic films about broken families. Gary's decision to run away isn't played as a silly pet adventure. It's a genuine response to feeling unloved and forgotten by the person he trusts most. The scenes of Gary wandering the streets, getting thinner and weaker, are genuinely heartbreaking. This particular adventure doesn't shy away from showing the consequences of neglect, a beloved pet slowly starving because his owner was too distracted to care. It's the kind of real-world tragedy that happens every day, presented without the usual cartoon safety net. The episode's most gut-wrenching moments show Gary's physical deterioration as he searches for food and shelter, his meowing becoming weaker and more desperate. His encounter with the elderly woman who takes him in provides temporary relief, but the underlying tragedy remains. Gary nearly dies because SpongeBob was too obsessed with a paddle ball to feed him. Graveyard Shift. This night shift tale turns the usually cheerful Krusty Krab into a genuine horror movie setting, complete with flickering lights, mysterious phone calls, and the legendary hash-slinging slasher. Squidward's ghost story isn't just spooky, it's crafted with the precision of someone who understands how to build genuine dread. The episode succeeds as horror because it takes familiar elements and makes them threatening. The spatula becomes a weapon, the phone becomes a harbinger of doom, and the usually comforting restaurant becomes a place where terrible things happen after dark. It's like watching your childhood bedroom transform into a haunted house. The hash-slinging slasher legend itself is genuinely disturbing. A former fry cook who died after cutting off his own hand, replacing it with a spatula, only to return as a vengeful ghost. Squidward's methodical description of the signs, the lights flickering, the phone ringing with no one there, and the arrival of the ghost at the stroke of midnight creates a perfect storm of supernatural dread. Rock bottom. SpongeBob's descent into rock bottom feels like falling into an aquatic version of hell, complete with strange creatures, incomprehensible language, and the growing realization that escape might be impossible. This underwater locale exists in perpetual darkness, populated by beings that seem designed to make visitors feel unwelcome and lost. The language barrier creates a profound sense of isolation that goes beyond simple communication problems. SpongeBob can't understand anyone, can't make himself understood, and can't even figure out how to leave. It's like being trapped in a foreign country where you don't speak the language, except the country might also be located in a psychological nightmare. The residents of Rock Bottom speak with bizarre raspberry sounds that create an almost alien quality to their communication, making SpongeBob feel like he's dealing with an entirely different species. The surreal geography of the town, with its impossible angles, strange lighting, and gravity-defying elements, adds to the nightmarish quality. SpongeBob's increasingly frantic attempts to catch the bus become genuinely anxiety-inducing as we watch him fail over and over, trapped in what feels like a recursive nightmare. Home Sweet Pineapple. The destruction of SpongeBob's house hits different than typical cartoon property damage because the show has established how much the pineapple means to him. It's not just where he lives, it's a reflection of his personality, his history, and his place in Bikini Bottom. Watching it get devoured by nematodes is like watching someone's entire identity get erased. SpongeBob's reaction to homelessness is surprisingly realistic for a cartoon character. The shock, the denial, and the gradual acceptance that his life has fundamentally changed mirror real responses to sudden loss. His wandering around looking for a new place to belong captures something genuine about displacement and the search for home. The nematode invasion itself is portrayed with an almost apocalyptic quality, thousands of tiny creatures systematically devouring everything SpongeBob owns while he watches helplessly. His attempts to save pieces of his home become increasingly desperate and futile, creating a sense of genuine loss. The Splinter. A minor injury gets transformed into body horror that wouldn't be out of place in a medical nightmare. SpongeBob's attempts to hide his splinter lead to increasingly grotesque infections and injuries that are genuinely disturbing to watch, especially when you consider this is supposed to be a kid's show. The episode captures the real psychology of hiding an injury out of fear and shame. SpongeBob's terror of Mr. Krabs finding out about his splinter leads him to make increasingly desperate and harmful decisions, turning a minor problem into a major crisis through poor judgment and panic. The medical horror escalates when SpongeBob's thumb begins to swell to massive proportions, developing what appears to be a serious infection complete with discoloration and oozing. His attempts to hide it with increasingly elaborate disguises become both pathetic and disturbing, especially when he starts using condiments and other unsanitary materials to conceal the wound. The close-up shots of the infected splinter are genuinely hard to watch. The Fry Cook Games. The complete destruction of SpongeBob and Patrick's friendship over competitive cooking turns what should be innocent fun into something resembling gladiatorial combat. Their rivalry escalates from friendly competition to genuine hatred with a speed that's both cartoonish and unsettling. This storyline explores how quickly close relationships can turn toxic when competition and pride get involved. SpongeBob and Patrick don't just compete, they try to destroy each other, both physically and emotionally, showing how thin the line is between love and hate when egos are involved. The competition becomes genuinely vicious as both characters resort to increasingly underhanded tactics, sabotage, and personal attacks that cut deep into their friendship. The moment when they stop recognizing each other as friends and see only enemies is particularly chilling. Their eyes literally change to show hostility where love once existed. Texas. Sandy's emotional breakdown reveals a depth of sadness that the show rarely explores. Her homesickness isn't played for laughs. It's a genuine depiction of someone slowly dying inside from being separated from everything that makes them feel whole. The narrative captures the real pain of displacement and cultural isolation. Sandy's tough exterior cracks to reveal someone who's been putting on a brave face while slowly falling apart inside, which is surprisingly mature emotional territory for a cartoon to explore. The breakdown sequence shows Sandy's gradual deterioration from confident scientist to someone barely holding it together. Her attempts to recreate Texas in her tree dome become increasingly desperate and pathetic, building elaborate sand sculptures and talking to herself in an accent that becomes more pronounced as she loses her grip on reality. Shanghaied. The Flying Dutchman adventure introduces genuine supernatural horror to SpongeBob's universe, complete with curses, ghost ships, and the very real possibility that characters might be trapped in supernatural servitude forever. The alternate endings where different characters end up enslaved add a layer of genuine consequence that's unusual for the series. The multiple endings suggest that bad things can happen to good characters purely by chance, which is a darker philosophical concept than most children's shows are willing to explore. The randomness of who gets trapped with the Flying Dutchman adds an element of genuine unfairness to the universe. The Flying Dutchman himself is portrayed as genuinely menacing rather than just spooky, with his ability to manipulate reality and trap souls, adding real stakes to the encounter. His backstory as a legendary ghost cursed to sail the seas forever brings mythological weight to the story. The Suds. Patrick's medical treatment of SpongeBob is essentially attempted murder through incompetence, showing how good intentions combined with ignorance can be genuinely dangerous. Patrick's confidence in his non-existent medical knowledge turns a minor illness into a life-threatening situation. This installment serves as unintentional commentary on how misinformation can be deadly, even when spread by people who genuinely want to help. Patrick's treatment methods are so wrong, they're almost malicious, yet his sincere belief that he's helping makes the situation even more disturbing. Patrick's treatments include forcing SpongeBob to stay submerged in freezing water, applying random household items as medicine, and generally making every possible wrong decision while maintaining absolute confidence in his methods. His dismissal of Sandy's actual medical knowledge in favor of his own ignorant assumptions creates a terrifying portrait of how dangerous confident stupidity can be. Ink Lemonade. This recent entry represents how far the show has drifted from its original tone, featuring Patrick deliberately torturing Squidward for profit. The plot doesn't just show meanness, it shows entrepreneurial cruelty, where someone's suffering becomes a business opportunity. Patrick's complete lack of empathy as he watches Squidward's distress and sees only dollar signs represents a level of sociopathy that would be genuinely concerning in real life. This segment feels like a symptom of how the show has lost touch with the heart that made its original humor work, replacing innocent chaos with calculated cruelty. The business model Patrick develops is genuinely disturbing, systematically terrorizing Squidward to extract his ink, then selling that ink as a beverage to customers who are essentially paying to consume someone's fear and pain. Patrick's marketing of Squidward's suffering as a refreshing drink adds a layer of commodification to the torture that makes it even more unsettling. So comment down below, what moment do you think is the darkest? If you enjoyed this, make sure to subscribe to never miss a video.